This is Goku-san DBZ, and welcome back for a special new video. This is a 10 list, not really a top 10, but in my opinion, and ranking in my opinion, 10 of the most powerful gods in mythology. So with that said, I will not be including, of course, any gods from pretty much any standard main religions, mainly because most only believe in one. So, with that said, these are from ancient mythology as well as fantasy and so on and so forth. But these will 10 specific gods, I think, and yes, even comic book form can qualify because it's really a modern, if you think about comic books, are modern day mythology. Superheroes are the modern day version of gods, really, if you think about it. But I'll be looking at some superpower entities or deities from different mythos. First up, of the 10, coming up first, also, was it Azeroth or not? Something like that. Yeah, something like Azeroth, or I forget the exact pronunciation, but a being from, of course, the mythos or the universe of H.P. Lovecraft. Next up, the second, is actually from, of course, ancient Egyptian mythology. And he is, in my opinion, one of the coolest designed gods. Of course, he is basically a overseer of souls going into the afterlife. He balances out the good and the evil things you have done in life and decides where you go, basically. And of course, that is Anubis. A lot of people, for some reason, sometimes have mistaken call him like God of the Underworld. He is not God of the Underworld. He is a guardian. He helps souls go on. He, more or less, he works for his uncle, which, by the way, is the real God or Lord of the Underworld. Of course, that being Osiris from ancient Egyptian gods. The third god of which talk about is from, of course, Egyptian, or not Egyptian, but Greek mythology. One of the Olympians, one of the three brothers, of course, of Olympus. And no, I'm not going to talk about Zeus. The guy which had a weird obsession for transforming into animals and then sexually attacking human women. Yeah, he doesn't deserve a spot on this list to talk about. Instead, his older brother, and I feel one of the more misunderstood of the ancient Greek gods. And that being, of course, Hades, Lord of the Dead, and Lord of the Underworld, of course, in Greek mythology. But in my opinion, Hades is one of the more underrated, one of the more overlooked gods, in my opinion, from Greek mythology, in general of ancient gods. I just feel Hades deserves a lot more respect than he got, in my opinion. He got screwed over by his younger brother. And to be fair, Triton got a pretty decent share given he got to roll over the seas. And then Zeus screwed over his brother and, of course, got Mount Olympus. Yeah, not a fan of Zeus. With that said, fourth of these amazing, powerful beings and entities. The fourth one actually comes from Marvel Comics, of all things. Yeah, I know. And this being is a being that judges you more or less and will decide your fate. He is one of the ultimate powerful beings of the entire Marvel multiverse. His name, or rather the being's name, is the Living Tribunal. One of easily the three most powerful beings in all of Marvel Comics. The Living Tribunal is one of these three. Of course, another one you may have heard of. And of course, that is the Beyonder. And the other one is called the One Above All, in case you were curious. But of design characters and like powers and things, I was always struck and fascinated by the creature or being, the Living Tribunal. I find one of the more interesting creations from the multiverse of Marvel. Coming in and the fifth of the 10 characters, or beings rather, is from, of course, the DC multiverse. Now, you may have heard of this one before, of course. He has a comic series. He is actually the second most powerful being, more or less considered by many to be the second most powerful being in the DC multiverse. And his name is, of course, Lucifer Morningstar. Is the fifth being. Lucifer Morningstar is considered by many people at DC considered to be the second most powerful being in all of DC multiverse. Who is the most powerful being in the DC multiverse? It's Lucifer Morningstar's father. And of course his name is the Presence. And Lucifer Morningstar is different than the Christian version of Lucifer. There are definitely some differences in things, especially if you've read any of the Lucifer comic books from Vertigo Comics, you would know this. Next up, coming in at number 6. No specific ranks, of course, but this being is a special favorite of mine. Now, technically, he may not be considered truly a god. I would consider him at the very least a demigod to a certain level of godhood of sorts. His power was incredible, and he reigned for many years in the universe of Middle-earth and Tolkien. And that is the original Dark Lord. Because the second Dark Lord, known as, of course, Sauron, is chump change compared to who Sauron served. His name was Morgoth. He was the true original Dark Lord of the universe of Lord of the Rings. And if you wish to know more about this particular being and his power, I recommend checking out books such as The Children of Hurin or The Silmarillion. If you want to know more about this specific being, which I highly recommend reading up on and learning about. The seventh being of the 10 on the list is actually a being you've probably heard of more than once. This being actually origins come from another actually part of Greek mythology, and that is the King of the Titans. He was the father of Hades, he was the father of Poseidon, and he was the father of Zeus. He was Kronos, the original king of ancient Greek gods. The original king. The king of the Titans before the rule of the Olympians. He was quite powerful, as was his mother. You may have heard of her. Her name was Gaia, which would become in modern day known as the spirit of the earth by many in the New Age neo-pagan communities. But with that said, eighth being is another being, actually from more, I guess you could say, how should I put this? He comes from Scandinavian lore. And he was known, of course, I guess you could say, the king of course, the Norwegian gods, the true ultimate ruler. And of course, that being Odin, the father of obviously Loki and Thor. And no, not the Marvel interpretation of Odin, the actual Norwegian version, the true gods of the ancient Vikings. Next up, number 9 is actually a being or entity which is, I find, quite interesting, really, if you think about it. And of course, this is the king of the ancient Egyptian gods. His name, or really the most powerful, his name was Kun-Ra. Not Ra, Kun-Ra. And if you don't know much, Kun-Ra was the father of Osiris and Set, grandfather to Anubis, Horus, and many others, and of course also father of Isis, the goddess, not what modern day stole her name and insulted. So with that said, coming in the 10th of some of these ultimate beings of mythology, myths, legends, that is probably the most famous being ever created by Lovecraft himself. And that is, of course, the ancient dimension traveling being, which if you would look upon him, you would go insane. That is, of course, the being simply known as Cthulhu. Cthulhu is truly a fascinating entity, creature of myths and legends. The ultimate, in my opinion, the ultimate creation that H.P. Lovecraft would ever design. So with that said, leave a comment. Who are some of your favorite deities or gods of mythology, modern mythology, heck, even in comic books, like I mentioned, entities such as the Presence, the One Above All, Lucifer Morningstar, the Living Tribunal, the Beyonder, and of course, if you want to go also Image Comics, you have beings like Malebolgia, which was ruler of one of the realms of hell, and a great thorn in the side of Spawn for quite a long time. But anyways, I'll see y'all next time. Same YouTube time, same YouTube channel, and I hope you enjoyed the Halo music in the background. See you next time.